So in this screencast, we're going to look at arrays in microbit. So an array is a container that holds a fixed number of items of the same type. And this is really important that it is of the same type. So you could have something like an array of numbers, or you could have an array of strings. But it's important that they're of the same type. So you wouldn't have an array that has some numbers and some strings in there unless the numbers were stored as strings. So it's useful to have an array when maybe you have a number of different variables. So for example, you might have num1, number2, number3, number4, and number5. You could just have an array of numbers, and then you can hold them all together, and then you would use an index to access the elements of the array. So when you're using an index to access the elements of an array, it is zero based. And what I mean by that is your first index is 0. And this would be something that would be common across most programming languages, that when you're using indices for things like arrays, it is generally 0 based. So you start at 0. So if you have an array with 4 things in there, your indices would be 0 for the first one, then 1, 2, and 3. So it doesn't go 1 to 4. It instead goes 0 to 3. So we're going to have a look at a project here that displays numbers. So on start, we're going to create an array of numbers to hold the values 5, 7, and 9. And then when the A button is pressed, we'll display the value at index 0, which will show 5. When the B button is pressed, we'll display the value at index 1, which will show 7. And when the A and B button are pressed together, we will display the value at index 2, so that should show us a 9. So in makecode.com, we have created a new project. And again, we've got an onStart and a forever. So I'm just going to get rid of the forever. And this time I'm going to leave the onStart because I'm going to create my array when the microbit starts up, or when the simulator starts up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable, and the variable is going to be called list. So I'll create a variable called list here. And then I'm going to drag across the set item 2. I'll just put that into the onStart. I'm going to change item to list here. Now what I want to do is I actually want to set that list to an array. So if you go down here to the advanced, you can click on advanced here. And if I just go down a little bit, you'll see there's a block here for arrays. So I can just click on arrays, and you see the way here you've got create array with. So this is a numeric array, and this one here, create array with the text blocks, that's one that you would create to create an array of strings. In this case, I'm going to create an array with numbers. So I'm just going to click on or pull across the create array with. Now, I have said I want an array with 3 values in there. I can only put 1 in here at the start. So if I click on the little settings icon here, I can just pull across. So it's quite similar to the if-else statement that we've seen before. So I could just pull across the value and drop it in. And you'll see here there's another plug opening up here now. And then if I pull another one down, so that says I'm creating an array with 3 values in there. And I can set those 3 values to 3 different things. And you can insert as many as you want, or take out some. If I take this out now, it will just bring it back to 2. If I put it back in, it brings it back to 3. I'm going to close this down now. Now what I need to do is I can change the value of 0 here to 5, but I don't have any value here for the 7 and the 9. So what I need to do is I need to go to the math blocks. And in the math blocks there's a numeric value here, so I can just pull that and drop it in under the 5. And now I can change that to 7. And I can either duplicate this one, or I can go back to math, and I can pull across that numeric value again and drop it in and put a 9 in there. So now I'm setting my list to create an array with 5, 7, and 9. So what I've got here now is I've got an array with 3 values in it, and the indices for those 3 values are going to be 0, 1, and 2. So if I say look at the value in index 0, it's going to show me 5. If I ask for the value in index 1, it's going to show me a 7. And if I ask for the value in index 2, it's going to show me a 9. So let's have a look at how we might do that. So we go back up here to input. And remember, when the A button is pressed, we are going to show the number. I'm just going to pull across show number. Now I'm going to go back down to the arrays blocks here. And I'm going to see here you've got list get value at. So here this is saying go to the list array and get the value at a particular index. You can also set the value at particular indices and so on, but I'm just going to do get value at to start off with. So we're saying show the number, list, get value at 0 when the A button is pressed. So if I click the A button now, it should show me 5. Now, there's no point in clicking the B button because I haven't coded that yet, but that's just showing us the value at index 0. If I right click here and duplicate, it'll duplicate the entire thing. Remember, it goes grey because you can only have one on button A press. So if I change that to a B, it's going to show the number list, get value at 1. So now if I click the B button, it shows the 7. And then the final thing I need to do is duplicate again and change the B to A plus B. And this time I'm going to look for the value at index 2. So now let's test the entire thing. A shows a 5, B shows 7, and A plus B shows 9, as we would expect. So the next project we're going to have a look at is a sorting hat array. So we're going to revisit our sorting hat project. And this time we're going to use an array to store our values of Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. So this time we're going to use a string array. So we're going to create an array of strings called list, and we're going to hold these values. We might call it house. It doesn't really matter what we call it. And then we're going to give it the values of G for Gryffindor, H for Hufflepuff, R for Ravenclaw, and S for Slytherin. And then we're going to do an on shake. And when the microbit is shaken, we're going to pick a random number between 0 and 3. And then we're going to display the string at that index of the array. So we're going to create a new project in here. But before we do that, we're actually just going to call this one. So we need to store our project. We're just going to call it array, and we're going to save it. Then I'm just going to go to projects, new project. So this one is going to be called sorting hat array, which we'll do in a minute. So again, we're going to get rid of our forever because we don't need it right now. We have our on start, and we're going to make a variable. And this time I'm going to make a variable called house array. I'm going to click OK. So then I can just pull across set item 2. I'm going to click on this and change it to set house array. And then remember, we go down to arrays here. And we're going to pull across create array with, because this time we're using it as a string array. Now I'm just going to click on here. I'm just going to pull across 2 other values. Because remember, we need 4 of them. Now, this time I need to go to, I'm just going to close this up for a second. I need to go to this text block here and just pull across this text here to allow us, and I'll just right click and duplicate that. And that's going to allow us to put in the 4 different values. So Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. So those are my 4 values. So I have my array called house array now set. Now the next thing I need to do, I'm just going to close up the advanced there. I'm just going to go to the top here. So that has created my array when the microbit starts. So I'm just going to go to input here, and I'm going to say on shake. So we're just going to pick a random number, and you can find that in math. But here we're going to first off create a variable. I'm going to make a variable, and I'm going to call it house. And I'm going to click OK on that. And then I'm going to set house to, and I'll go to math, and I'll pick random. And again, I'm going to pick random 0 to 3 this time, because remember, they're the only values I can have. So I'm setting house to pick random 0 to 3. And then I'm going to go to basic, and I'm going to pull across show string here. And then I'm going to show the string that is in the house array at the index of house here. So I'm going to go down here to arrays again. And I'm just going to pull across this get value at, and instead of list, I'm going to put in house array here. So I'm going to show the string in the house array at the value, which is house. So I need to go back here to my variables again, pull across house, and that will drop it in there. So now I'm showing the string at the index of house in house array. So if house is equal to 0, it'll show G for Gryffindor. If it's 3, it will show S for Slytherin. If it's 1, it will show H for Hufflepuff. And finally, if it is 2, it will show it will show R for Ravenclaw. So now if we try and do our testing, if I shake it, it shows H for Hufflepuff, S for Slytherin, shake it again, R for Ravenclaw, S for Slytherin, G for Gryffindor. So it's going through each and every one and showing us all the different values. So as you can see from what we did before with the decisions, this one is just a slightly more elegant code because you don't have to do all that testing of if statements. You literally just pick a random number and then you show whatever value is at that random number. So I'm just going to name this. So I'm going to call it sorting hat array. I'm going to save it. And it's downloading. And then I'm just going to go to my file explorer and copy it across to the microbit. So here you can see the sorting hat array is there. I pick it up, I drop it onto the microbit. And once it's complete, I should then be able to check to make sure that it's working on the microbit. So one final thing I just want to show you before we finish this screencast. I just want to show you this set value at, just so that you can see how you might go about changing that. So maybe if we do something like on the B button pressed, so I'm just going to go to input here. I'm going to go to, actually we'll just check the A button. So I'm just going to pull this down here. So on the A button pressed, I'm going to go back to arrays here. And here I'm going to use this set value at. So I'm going to pull that across. I'm going to change list to house array. And here I'm saying set value at 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it from the G to Gryffindor. So I'm actually going to print out all the text. So here I'll just go into text here again, pull across the text block. And I'm just going to put in GRYFFINDOR. So instead of saying G, it's going to say Gryffindor. I will right click and duplicate that. When it's 1, I'm going to make it Hufflepuff. When it's 2, I'm going to make it Ravenclaw. Change that to 2. And then finally, when it's 3. So you can actually, once after you've created the array, you can actually change the values in those indices. So I'm going to make that 3, and I'm going to make that Slytherin. So let's do a test here. So if we do a shake, it's R, and it's G, and so on. If I now press the A button, now it doesn't look like anything is changing, but if I shake it now, it's printing out the full name of the house. So again, that's just something else that you can do with arrays, is once you've given it a value, you can actually change the value based on something that you do. So that is a few projects in using arrays. I hope you found this screencast useful.